Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel. For this parable, we're going to Vietnam. As you know, there was a war with Vietnam, at least with North Vietnam, between the United States and the Viet Cong in the 1970s. There was, however, a supply towards the United States enemies from Cambodia, and Cambodia also had a fascistic regime in which genocide occurred. So the United States Army entered Cambodia, but the United States Army did not remain there for long. So when the United States retreated from Cambodia, there were Cambodians that thought, great, we've won, it's over. And soon afterwards, the United States withdrew themselves from Vietnam, and Vietnam reunited as one country. Then there was this one Vietnamese, he was just a fisherman, he wasn't anyone considered important. And he told the people in his village, I don't trust this. I don't trust the sudden withdrawal of the United States forces. And the people told him, get over yourself, old man. Things are not the same as when you were young. When you were young, you had the French occupying our country. The French are gone. The United States tried to occupy us. They're gone. We're free, man. Come on. Nobody wanted to listen to him. But he kept telling the people something doesn't add up. Well, 2 years later, there were people missing limbs. And some children even died. And the people of Vietnam were thinking, what's going on here? But then some government officials found out that there were many landmines that the United States forces left behind. Not only the United States force, but also other militias from Cambodia itself that took advantage of the war. And there were many mines around, and there were so many that the Cambodian state did not have the capacity at the time to clean up all the mines. So the people covered it up because people were so overjoyed that they had won, that America is gone. And you also had a fascistic regime that collapsed, so people were recovering. So both the government and many of the people in society thought, okay, we're not going to talk about this, we're just going to move on. Meanwhile, from time to time, every month, a mine went off. But when a mine went off, it was often explained away. For example, if you had a young girl, a 4 years old, missing one leg because her mother died when a mine went off and part of her leg was also damaged, people would say, well, it was a crocodile. So people kept covering up what was going on. Now, this is a parable, okay? It is true that in history, the United States forces went into Cambodia, and it is true that many mines were left behind. I'm not sure if it was by the United States or by other enemies of Cambodia, but that's not relevant for this teaching. Just understand, in this parable, that old man was telling the truth. He was not telling a true fact. It was a true fact that the United States military withdrawn. It was a true fact that their own civil war ended, and it was true fact that now there was societal peace. But it was not true that things were safe, that the danger was over. Even though there were no troops on their territory, let me say like this, the war was officially over in a military sense, but in a practical sense, there was still danger. Let me say, the consequences, the traces of the war still had an effect on the people. But the people were in denial. And in a similar way, a lot of people operate today. People often say, forget about the past, you can't change the past, you have to move on. Nobody benefits when you keep talking about what happened. And such statements are true, in the sense that those are true facts. but it's not the truth. Let me explain. In the parable I just gave unto you, it's true that a civil war happened in Cambodia, and it's true that there was an offensive of the United States and some militias. That happened. They couldn't change what happened. They couldn't turn back time. That wasn't possible. So it's true that being angry about what happened wouldn't be productive. That's all. That's a true fact. But it's not the truth that they just have to forget all that happens, pretend it never happened, and remain at ease in the present without, countering the consequence of what happened. I hope you get what I'm saying here. Yes, you should move on, you should move forward, you should have a positive attitude towards the future, but realize the past events have an effect, and you need to be aware of this in order to overrule those effects. For example, if the Cambodian government realized, wait a minute, there are many mines here, you know what? Instead of investing money in that in that industry, we're now going to input billions into scanning the whole country in order to dig up all the mines. Yes, that would mean less economic growth for the next decade, less jobs, more people on welfare, but at least people are safe in their own country. But just like in this parable, the Cambodian government the Cambodian government was in denial, and also the society as a whole was in denial, the same thing happens today. For example, if you have a community where, how would I say like this? If you have a community where there are families where children aren't safe, it's a community's responsibility to deal with those parents. But the community says children need to respect their parents, so when they encounter a child threatening to call the cops if a parent beats them, they would say, how can children talk like that to their parents? Man, where is this road going? They don't look at the whole situation. First of all, no child. Because children are very vulnerable, children can't think complex, so when a child realizes this danger, and a child even uses a threat on the parent, that the child would call the cops or tell someone else if he's hit, that shows something's up. That shows something doesn't add up here. Why would a child who doesn't even have complex brains yet, why would a child think such a thing? Listen, people often see what they want to see. They have this imprint on their brain that a weaker human being always has to give validation to a stronger human being. That's how they were brought up also. This is what society teaches them. So when a weaker individual threatens a bigger one, they think it's an abomination. But they don't look at the whole situation. If the child thinks the child is not safe, and the child thinks the child needs to keep the parents in check, something doesn't add up. But instead of dealing with what's going on, people bury it. Just like those mines in Cambodia. And what happens? Some of those children endure a lot of psychological trauma, and they grow up, and demons begin to inhabit those people. And when demons inhabit them, those adults are not aware that demons are inhabiting them, and demons are now using those individuals to kill, steal, and destroy in that community. What happens now? The community reaps what they've sown. They've sown child abuse, child neglect as a community. Now they're reaping terrorism. Now they're reaping sadistic crime. And now they're asking, what's happening? What's going on around here? Well, instead of being in denial, they should have looked at the bigger picture, acknowledged the situation, look carefully at the situation, what's going on, and take actions to overrule the consequence of what happened. The community cannot prevent every bad thing from happening in the households, but they can take actions to hinder it, and they can take actions to circumvent bad consequences and trauma, either by providing programs for such people, or by establishing clubs, or the community could circumvent things, but the community doesn't do it. People in the community have their private lives, their privacy. They want to be left alone in their illusionary, self-directed worlds, and they don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be disrupted. But when the minds go off. Now they're angry, now they're upset, and now they're even becoming angry against the Most High and asking God, why you allow this to happen? Look, this video is not to point a finger at people and blame people. This video is to open your eyes. Yes, the past has happened. There's no use in raging about it. However, you need to acknowledge it and take actions to overrule its consequences. Or else similar things or worse will happen again. That being said, agree with Christ and be at peace.